Let's move on to the next segment for the day, a leader's discussion on the topic Envisioning the Future of Workspaces and Talent. Please welcome our speakers for the session, Rajashree R, CMO TCS, Anuranjita Kumar, founder and CEO WiT-ACE, and chairing this discussion is Sangeeta Gupta, Senior Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer, NASSCOM. At NASSCOM, Sangeeta leads a number of key initiatives that focus on industry, research, outreach, events, communications, as well as strategic priorities at NASSCOM. Over to you, Sangeeta. The stage is all yours.
Good evening and a very warm welcome to another power-packed session at NTLF 2021. What a phenomenal day it's already been, and I think we have a very hard act to follow. Yesterday, we heard the Prime Minister urging the IT industry and startups to think long-term. Think of India's journey from this year when it attains India at 75 to what will it be when India is at 100. How can India build more global products, more technology solutions, and more global leaders from India? It's important we not only address the current short-term imperatives, but more importantly, think through how are we preparing for global leadership over this next few years. However, as we look back, if we circle back to 2020, and the two key trends that are being talked about the most at this event, the whole imperative of digital acceleration. Today's theme is the hyper digital acceleration playbook, as we are talking about. And that's been very extensively covered in a lot of other sessions. The other big reset we witnessed was the future of work and the shift to remote working. If we look at the IT industry, I think in March 2020 and just in between April 2020, almost 90% of our workforce shifted to a remote working model in a matter of weeks. It sounds very easy right now, but it was a very, very stressful time for the industry and all the employees in making sure that our business continuity did not impact global clients. At the same time, we could take care of our employees. So while 2020 has been about fighting the pandemic and making the remote working model come true, the bar has been raised. I think as we look at 2021, the post-vaccine world, we all recognize that hybrid work models are likely to continue, and the focus has to shift to more personalization, better experiences, differentiated learning, and enabling inclusion. What is this new model of work? It still continues to be fuzzy. It means different things to different people. If you quiz 10 different leaders, you'll hear maybe 10 different answers. But I think the most important imperative is everybody understands that this is here to stay. It will change, it will modify depending on external and internal requirements. But the companies that can get this right, it can be a key differentiator for their organizations as well as their workforce. Also for a country like India, it will mean that India can innovate with new models of work. India led the outsourcing offshoring revolution in 1998 and 2000 with the whole Y2K space. The 2020 and the whole hybrid work model will provide another inflection point where we can potentially lead and innovate with the work from anywhere model. To decode what lies ahead in the future of workplaces and talent, I'm joined by two very accomplished leaders. Rajashree R, CMO of TCS. She is the brand custodian of TCS and has played a key role in enabling TCS to be among the top 3 brands in IT services globally. She loves storytelling and is really enabling how the power of technology is not just communicated in technology terms, but in much more simpler, common to use phraseology so that we better understand what is happening around us. My second guest is Anuranjita Kumar. She's the founder of WiT-ACE and a seasoned HR professional in her career across Citibank, RBS, P&G. She's also a diversity champion and the author of 2 best-selling books, Color Matters and Can I Have It All? The WiT-ACE platform is a global platform for enabling, engaging, and employing women in the industry. And I think the short span of time, it is emerging as a great place where women can learn, engage, and network with each other. Welcome, Rajashree and Anuranjita. It's a pleasure to have you both join me today. Audience, I'd request you to please post your questions in the Q&A panel, and we'll try and take them during the course of the discussion. So Rajshri, if I can start with you, I was just looking through some of the recent talks that you've done. And I think one of the things that stood out for me was where you mentioned that you're a firm believer in enabling change and not be restricted by I can or I can't. I think the quote you said is sometimes one has to be like a small child who doesn't care and just gets and jumps into it. So tell us more about this change mindset and how that has shaped you as a professional. And as we think about the future of workplaces, work, and talent, why is this mindset of change so critical?
Sangeeta, if there's one thing constant in our business, it's change, right? So, if you look at our history, 20, 25 year, I mean, 50 years of IT industry history and, our own history of working maybe 20, 25 years, we've seen multiple cycles of revolution, right? So, we had the Y2K and then we had the entire explosion of digital. And of course, what we have seen in the last 12 months is, unprecedented change, right? I believe that both myself as an individual, TCS as a company, and the entire IT industry as an industry, our ability to adopt this change is purely been because we have embraced change extremely well, right? So I think to me there can't be a better testimony to our ability to adopt change than what we have gone through in the last 12 months. So that's been the most constant, and I actually love this excitement of doing new things all the time. So while think times have been tough, but it's given us an opportunity to reinvent ourselves, which has been interesting.
Thank you, Rajshri. Anuranjita, a document or a comment I read from you was dealing with ambiguity is far easier if you learn how to enjoy it. Is it so applicable as we think over from 2020? And when you think of future of work, what are some of these differentiated skills that will be key to navigate what lies ahead?
Sangeeta, brilliant question, and thank you for having me here. Well, ambiguity, I think the whole 2020 till now in 2021 has been ambiguous. And organization or individuals who've pivoted have kind of treaded forward in that ambiguity. So I think when you're going through a journey where nothing is certain, let me put it like this, anything is possible then. And it's about making those choices, what you want to do. It's like somebody said, never let a crisis go waste. And that's what ambiguity in some ways means to me. And I can just talk about myself, I decided to leave a corporate career early last year after a long 25, 26-year journey. I jumped into my own venture because I was really passionate about women in STEM. And voila, I mean, COVID hits in March. So Jan to March, we do all the research, we get the platform ready, and then COVID hits, there's a lockdown. All we did was pivoted. We pivoted really quickly. Given we were women in STEM, we pivoted to be digital as fast as we could. And a lot of hard work, a bit of destiny, and destiny favors those who work hard during that time. So I think we happen to be in a space of gender, we happen to be space of STEM, and somehow those two, three things happened to make things work for us during COVID, which was as amorphous as it could be. So I think one shouldn't be afraid of ambiguity. One should just pause and figure out what you want to do with that situation. Because it's like, I think, fear kills more dreams than failure ever will. So it's a bit like if you keep trying and you kind of try and find your path within that ambiguous way, ambiguity that you're faced with, the path starts to unfold, which is why I narrated the story that I did. So I think ambiguity gives birth to a lot of creativity. I just think that the whole fear factor from that should be kind of mitigated. And again, going back to Sangeeta, what you just said so beautifully, it's all about a mindset and how you look at a situation, positively versus fearfully. In terms of skills, I think it's going to be a new world out there, what we're going to be faced with. But I'm going to pause here and just, when I talk to my children who are now 17 and 22, they terribly miss their college. They terribly miss going back to school or college and being with their friends. So I think one of the biggest skills, or I don't know if it's even a skill, it's probably an attribute, is about connect and relationships. In a world which will be hybrid, which will be part virtual, part physical, how do we relate and how do we build our connects relationship with people will be key to driving whether it's business or life forward. The second thing would be looking at the big picture and figuring out whether, how the different jigsaw pieces come together. So if you are a entrepreneur or you're a CEO of a big firm, and I'm sure Rajshri will have multiple experience to share about it, is just keep looking at the big picture. And the third thing I would say is, take risk and try something new. And so the whole entrepreneurial spirit will probably be the flavor of the season.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I was having some audio issues. Actually, if I was to come back to you, there's been so much talk of the hybrid operating model. And
Yeah.
TCS in June 2020 had announced that by, the 2025 vision, where they'd said that 25% of the workforce will only come to office by 2025. And I think that really set the benchmark for the industry. Nobody really was expecting such a bold announcement at that time.
Yeah.
As we think of a post-vaccine world, how do you see this getting implemented? And how do you build an optimal framework to see which employees can come to office, who can work from their hometowns? And how does the whole model evolve really?
Sure. Sangeeta, as you mentioned, we put this out in April, and I think a few people at that point even realized what COVID was or what COVID could do to our world. We thought like a few weeks of lockdown and possibly everything will be back to normal. But what we realized as an organization that we were at a major inflection point. We realized that there was something that was happening, which was a major inflection point. I would go to the extent of saying human history, right? If you look at the human history, if you look at the pre-industrial revolution era, people used to work at their workplaces, right? The carpenters and the all the artisans used to work at their workplace, right? And the industrial evolution brought people to large centers essentially to drive efficiency, right? What we have learned, I guess, in the last 1 year is that now efficiency can be made available in nodes, right? So look at how we are operating today. We are able to operate with the same level of efficiency, the same level of productivity that we used to operate at a workplace, right? So this is not, in my view, this is not just about a movement to working from home, but it is an extremely important change in terms of how work is going to get done in the future, right? And I spent a lot of years in the retail industry, and I always go back to that example that when first online came, a lot of people used to say, "Oh, stores are going to die," right? I remember a grocery retailer telling us that you can never smell bread online, which essentially meant that you could never buy grocery online, right? But what really happened was neither did the stores die, nor did online not take off, but we saw a completely new consumer shopping journey, the way we shop today, right? We do certain things online and we do certain things in the store. In our view, that's what is going to happen in the future, right? And this will be very specific to an organization, it'll be specific to a project team, it'll be specific to the kind of work that we do, where we have to reimagine the work journey, right? What will you do at work? What will you do at home? When will you come to work? When will you go to home? And we do strongly believe that work offices will change and home will also change, right? A very interesting example of that is that when we used to collaborate, we used to famously have these offsites, right, where we used to go and we used to brainstorm, right? Which meant that you work in the office, but when you have to collaborate, you go to another location. What is probably likely to happen is you'll work at home, but you will go to office to collaborate, right? So we are seeing, we are going to witness a major transition. We have to still wait out and see how this works out. Which project teams are going to adopt this model in which fashion. I think there is a lot of experimentation that will happen, but we definitely believe that this is going to be a unified journey, right? So I was talking to a friend of mine who runs a startup, and she was saying that they asked people to come back to work, and the first group of people who came back were men with young children, right? They just wanted to get back to work. So I think this is going to be very individual. It's going to be based on individual project needs, it's also going to be based on how organizations are going to design it. So we have to wait and watch this out, but we are going to witness a transformation in the entire work journey. We've been famously saying that instead of people going to work, work will come to people. So we've been listening to all those 9 to 5 type of songs, right? But we are going to see a major transition in that model, and we'll have to wait to watch it out as to how this entire model is going to be designed. But we are watching it very closely, and we'll probably take some first steps in that direction as well.
Great points, Rajshri. So, Anuranjita, sorry, you worked in very large financial institutions. I don't know, I'm getting an echo. You worked in very large financial institutions where offices, employees had to come to office every day, and some of that is potentially not going to change due to regulatory issues or governance issues or client confidentiality issues. So as employers build their value proposition in this new normal, will an employee want to work for an organization that offers this flexible work model versus an organization that does not offer this work model?
When I look at employees, they do a job because they enjoy doing that job, or there is a financial return in that job. So when I look at banking services, you're right. I mean, they're covered under ESMA. So even during COVID, branches have to be kept open. And to be honest, when I talk to my colleagues in banking, it was tough to get the branch banking people to come to office, even though you were providing them transport. There was a fear of coming to office. So I think going back to what Rajshri was saying, there will be certain roles which will demand you to be in office, not just regulatory reasons. That is how the clients work. And so you've got to be there because that's where your consumers are. If your consumers are online, you'll be online. If your consumers are in the branch, then you'll have to be in the branch. So I think if I was to step back and go back to my HR head role, I would be devising a EVP which is client centric and be obsessive about being client centric. So, and then we go with where the client demands are and what our products are. I could always have, to address some of the issues about coming to branches and all that. That can be easily addressed. The way we do it is, Sangeeta, we do rotas and we do rotations. So it's not that everybody has to come every day. We can do it alternate days. So those things can be addressed. But I think as a EVP follows what the business strategy is, and if it is client centric and our products are online, then that's fine. If it is a hybrid model, then our employees will understand that to cater to their client, they will have to go along with the flow. If an employee doesn't want to cater to the client, then that's not part of our EVP any which way. And maybe there'll be another place for this person to work at. So I think in my sense, I echo what Rajshri was saying, that there will be this hybrid nature of work which will continue. But as there are people who do want to come back, as I said, I'm a little old school. I'd love to go back, and I love the zing and water cooler conversations and having that chai and coffee in office. But many don't. And working from home, as you and I were talking about, also has its own downsides as much as upsides, with things like wellness and lack of human connect, and there's only so much screen and with visual effects that we can take. So I think there are pros and cons of this, but my strong sense is that this will lie somewhere in between, and employees will follow what consumers want finally.
Great points, Anuranjita. So, Raj, coming back to you, technology and collaboration tools have been the lifeline for the remote model in 2020. Many people think of technology and collaboration really as video calls, WebEx, Zoom, Team. It is much more. So when you think about the whole future of workplace and making the hybrid operating model much more real, what are some of the 3, 4 key technology imperatives that that we should all be prepared for, and how should organizations proactively build and partner for these?
Sure. Sangeeta, when we talked about the 25 by 25 model, at the back of that, we also started talking about this transformative operating model called SBW, a secured borderless workspace model. We believe that this is a holistic model which essentially helps you to achieve 25 by 25 in some way. And there are many aspects to this model, right? The first aspect is obviously the entire technology platform with cloud and collaboration tools and all of that. The second was the concept of talent cloud, where you create a fungible. You talk about the technology cloud. We also talk about the human cloud, where you create a fungible talent model where people are able to work. You essentially take out location as a parameter, and people are able to work anywhere. The third thing is about how is the digital workplace going to look like, right? So how does your screen look like? How does your workplace look like? But there are two very key aspects to this model, right? The one is the entire employee engagement and wellness framework, which is actually, I would say, an unsung hero of this entire model. We put in place a very strong employee well-being and wellness model. As Anu was mentioning, we have 450,000 people across the world who are working at home. There are stresses which come along with it. We do worry about culture. We do worry about engagement. And I've been talking about this concept of ambient awareness, what Anu mentioned as water cooler, right? So when you're at work, you hear so much about the company, you hear about your project, you hear about people. How do we replicate all of that in this entire virtual model? So we put in place an entire framework, technology platform, activities, communication model behind it. And last but not the least is entire measurement and analytics, right? So how do you measure effectiveness? How do you measure productivity? My favorite one there is that we've always measured people sometimes. I mean, I'm sure historically with the amount of time somebody would work, spend at office, right? So, anecdotally, we would say, oh, that person is working very hard because he spends a lot of time at work. And I always felt that as a woman, that was a terrible measure to use because we could never compete on that measure, right? So we need to completely rethink our measurement and analytics model for how we measure work productivity. How do we have a more self-governance model? How do we inculcate more trust? So Sangeeta, I would say this is a complete 360-degree model. We are happy to share this with other organizations who want to adopt it. But there is a lot we have done, and there is a lot that needs to be done for this to really become a reality in the future.
No, great. Thank you so much. Anuranjita, coming back to you, just like technology is so critical, so is the importance of communication, right? I think one of the things we've seen in the last year is the, different ways leaders try to communicate with their employees, whether it was virtual town halls, Zoom parties. We heard a lot of different things. But obviously organizations need much more sustained communication in a distributed work model. So what do you think would be some of the key things that as leaders, when they think about building out the future of work in workplaces, how should they think about communication, and how should you lead from the top in many ways?
So I think the virtual world does present that challenge, which, physically when you're talking to somebody, there is something about the body language and the non-verbal cues. Now, as much as three of us are talking here and we can observe, it's there, it's probably 70% there. So I think, what I've seen, this more successful organization is they keep it really clear and simple when they're communicating from the top, whether it's a vision or it's the plan or it's what should be, what do they expect of employees, what can employees expect of them. It's very clear and it's crisp and it's shorter. So it's not like going into 3 hours of town hall, because doing that virtually is next to impossible, followed by a high tea, which is usually what used to be the format. So crisp, clear, and succinct is the way to go in terms of your messaging. I think how you cascade it down, and where it's virtual, I think you have a number of virtual tools to track how the cascade is happening. And actually it's better in the virtual world, because you can literally see, all kind of analytics, which physically you could not see people are really listening to you or not. The challenges I see on the reverse side is that when you're doing it virtually, it's not always under your control. So on a lighter note, when I meet my team, I mean, it's a real struggle for me to get them to switch on their videos sometime. Somebody just got up in the morning and, it's like, oh, I haven't combed my hair, I haven't brushed my teeth. I was like, switch on the video. So one day I decided I'm not going to talk till everybody's video is on. And I realized it was hard work. It took us 15 minutes to get about 30 screens switching on their videos. So I think the only thing which as leaders, I think we need to keep a tab of is that we're not missing those connects. So some simple stuff like your video screen on is a simple etiquette to follow. In my view, it might be a little tactical, but I do believe that it helps. Otherwise, I find people going into a slightly different zone. And I think finally, connect and communication is a matter of hearts as well. So as much as you do these large communications online, having those one-on-ones with the key personnel or having those smaller meetings with key teams will be critical in terms of embedding the messages in. And that will be the glue which kinds of holds it together. I know a lot of organizations, and I'm sure Rajshri has, larger volumes to talk about, but, inducting new employees. You have new campus grads coming on board. They have never worked for a corporate. How do you really make them feel they're part of this big organization and the strength of it? I haven't been able to crack that, but I think a lot of organizations have worked really hard to try and make that happen in the best possible way. They've extended, trying to make it the whole simulation to home. So I know organizations who are trying to do induction and there is an Amazon courier coming or Swiggy's carrying some cake and things like that. And, for me, that's very endearing because it talks about the effort and it talks about the feeling of an organization trying to do the best they can in these circumstances. So those little things count. And that's what, employees will kind of stick to.
Sorry, I'm talking on remote. So one of the questions we get asked very often is what will happen to the workplaces, the IT industry, many other companies have these very fancy campuses, lots of millions of square feet of office space. And, if even half of your population is going to work from remote or work from anywhere perspective, how would we re-architect the whole workplace? And what does that mean? I mean, is the concept of offices, we know it, is that over? Is it a different place that we will see as we get back to work?
Sure. Sangeeta, we actually had already started the journey a couple of years ago where we started doing what's called the open agile workplaces, right? So we went from that very cubicular IT organization structure to more open agile workplaces where there was more, collaboration workspaces, hot seats, no defined workspaces, ability of teams to move around. So if you look at some of our newer offices, we had already gone on that journey, right? So for us, I think it's just an extension of the journey. We will see offices emerging as massive collaboration and networking zones. I think we need to think through as to, are we going to see smaller offices, but more offices maybe in tier 2 towns or, in more nodal offices? But we've already done a lot of it. We've already, treated our offices as collaboration workspaces. If you come and visit us, you'll see this massive areas where people can just come, chat. There are workspaces, there are boards where, you can ideate, you can discuss. So I feel that's what is really going to happen, right? I mean, you won't just sit there to do a document and write a piece of code. You can do that anywhere, maybe even sitting on a beach, right? But I think this whole morphing of offices as collaboration and networking zones is probably a massive transformation that we'll see across the board.
So Anu, how do you see that, how do you see offices evolving? Do you see more growth happening in smaller cities across the country when they still need office space, or are you happy with people working from homes, right? Or wherever, on the beach as Rajshri earlier?
So I think TCS is leading the way for sure. I actually think that it will be muted in the short term. I think people are a little scared. And to be honest with you, for SME and MME companies, it is a cost arbitrage as well. So for them, if I can save costs and I can make this work digitally or virtually, why wouldn't I want to do that? Right. So I do feel that in the short term, it will be a little muted. And then long term is difficult to predict beyond 4 to 5 years. Also, this whole remote working, and this is not just for women, but men and women working from tier 3, tier 4. I have a chunk of my team, and believe it or not, I have 2 people working out of Maldives right now. Right. And it doesn't really matter because, the clients are okay with that model. So going back to my client centricity, because my clients are okay to deal with somebody remotely, I'm okay. I'm not going to insist that they come home because they don't need to, and I save some real estate expense. So that is process. So I think I do see it'll be a bit of a hybrid approach in the short term. But it might come back. Also, people are yet a little scared. We'll see how it goes after the vaccine. But like co-working spaces have been muted. So yeah, I'm glad I'm not in the construction business right now.
I know we're almost out of time, so I'll just move to the last question, Rajshri and Anu. Talent models of the future. We've heard conversations of how they will be flatter. You will have a different type of workforce, which will include the gig economy also. So what would be your thoughts around, what are these talent models of the future, and how should we as an industry prepare for these?
Yeah, I think the word that I like the most is the word we call talent cloud, right? I always love this quote which says, a man or a human should not be defined by where he or she was born or where he or she lives, right? So I think the biggest change that we are going to see is that people across where they are, what they do, what is their gender, which culture do they belong to, will be able to become part of what I call this talent cloud. To me, that's the biggest change that we are going to see. It's a great change for humanity in general because there are so many people who miss out on workspace because of all of these constraints we've put, right? You have to travel 2 hours a day to come to work, and you have to spend 9 hours a day. You have to work in this model. You have to attend all meetings physically. Once these constraints go away, I feel it is going to revolutionize and it is going to expand our workspace and create a great talent model, which has to be amazing for our humanity. So I'm really looking forward to the changes that we are going to see in the future. I think it's a change for good.
Anu, comments from you?
Yeah, so I agree with Raj. And I'll just add to it. I think talent that will brace itself for future will be people who create and think differently, who are not governed by, oh, this is what got me here, and so this will take me there. This is, how I succeeded. And organizations also have to change the success benchmarks. For me, one of the great successful stories lately is Clubhouse. So, two Stanford grads just about 11 months back seeded the idea. I mean, it's just wonderful. It's so simple, the idea, and which is why it got the attention. So, people who will dare to think differently than the past, who will not be afraid of saying, hey, this is my comfort zone, who will dare to get out of the comfort zone and take the risk, are the ones who will set the course for the future.
Okay, thank you so much, Rajshri and Anu. This has been such an interesting session. Love the feedback of how you need to change, but plan for that well enough time. Back to you, Shreya, and I hope both of you enjoyed the session.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sangeeta, for steering that session and giving us perspectives and points of view on what would be the future of workplaces and talent. Change has become the new constant across multiple dimensions of work and life, and this conversation set context from hybrid working models to smart workspaces, and of course, looking and dealing with investing in skills for the future. You heard words like agile, adaptable. You also heard words like creativity and creating spaces that would garner this and support systems. So approaches for workforce planning and reflecting on what it entails were all of the things that encapsulated this session.